Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. I hope you're having a nice start to the week. I am feeling very tired today. I don't know about any of you. Sometimes I just get in these moods. Like last night I couldn't get to sleep. I don't know why. I can't seem to get to sleep before 11:30 at the moment. Don't know what's going on there. Brain's a bit wild, I think. And then had some weird, strange dreams. I keep having some weird dreams. I often have weird dreams, actually. I don't know about any of you guys, but I have weird dreams quite often, and it's not like I always remember them, but I always have them. I know I've had a weird dream, and I think to myself, like, I wonder what has caused this. There's always a cause, isn't there? There's always something that makes a dream a dream. But I'm actually very grateful that I dream, because I wake up some mornings, I think, oh, really had a good time there. Maybe I didn't, but I don't know, but it's just made me feel really tired, and I feel like I woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Don't know if anyone else gets this, but I just felt really sluggish this morning, and I was like, oh, but the weather isn't great, so that doesn't help, but you're just like, oh, I don't want to do today. Although, actually, saying that, I weirdly managed to get myself up and do things. I think yesterday I had one of those days where you're so distracted, everything was distracting me, so we're feeling a bit more productive today. But if you're not feeling super productive today, it's okay. Don't stress about it. We can't be productive 100% of the time. It's one thing I have to remind myself quite often, actually, that you can't be productive all the time. Even if you want to be, you can't be. There's just no way of being constantly productive. You have to give yourself a bit of time to rest. But anywho, that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about comparison. Something that actually, this topic came to me because I dipped into a comparison hole recently, and the comparison hole is never good. I think we all go through this regardless of what you do and your age. I think there's always a bit of comparison, whether it's at school when you're seeing a popular girl and everyone likes her and you think, why doesn't everyone like me? Or when you're on social media and you see people living these great lives, or someone who's got the husband, she's got the kids, she's got the house, or perhaps someone's getting the job role that you've worked so hard for, but they've got it before you. Things like that. You're always going to compare, right? We always do. I think comparison is something that is so easy to do, because you see people's lives all over and you're just going to compare. It's just normal. But it's something that you have to kind of stop yourself getting down the hole of. If you can have that comparison and be like, oh, what's she doing like that? And then just leave the thought and move on, you're fine, because you're allowed to think those things. Everyone has thoughts of these kind of things. But it's when you dip into that hole of it, that constantly digging for more to compare yourself, that's when it gets quite bad and not great for your mental health. And believe you me, I do it often, and it's not something I'd like to think about often. Do you know what I mean? As much as I'd love to sit here and be like, I don't compare myself, I'm really I would say I'm quite sure of myself, I'm quite confident, but there are times when I compare myself heavily, and more so in a work sense than my actual self well-being and me as a person. I'm quite confident in myself, but with my job sometimes I can really compare, and that isn't very healthy, I don't think. So I thought we could talk about it, because I know that I'm sure a lot of people will also feel like this. And one thing that made me actually realise, whoa, Charlotte, stop for a minute, was recently actually I realised something, and I was like, everyone's different. Everyone works different, and you have got to where you are because of the things you've done, and that person has got to where they are for the things they've done. Just because you work differently, just because you haven't got as many followers, or you haven't got the big job, doesn't mean to say you're not successful, doesn't mean to say that you aren't getting to where you need to be, doesn't actually mean really anything, because everyone is on their own path, everyone is on their own track. And this is the kind of analogy I like to use often, is that we're all trains, we're all sat on a track, and some trains are just going quicker than others, and we're all maybe going to the same destination. We're probably all going to different destinations, let's face it, but if we talk about a general sense of the word, we're all going to a similar destination, right? It might always be the same distance away, right? But we're all trains and we're all sat on this track, But some people are going to be going faster. Some people have faster trains. Some people have slower trains. Some people have more stops along the way. Every single person is going at the speed they should be going at, and you're going at your speed. You might have to stop a few times before you get to where they are, and they might be on their fast track, no stops at all, and they get to where they are. But that doesn't mean to say that you aren't going to get there. We're all in different lanes, even different tracks. We're all going at a different speed, and the speed that you're going at is the speed you're supposed to go at. And just because someone's getting there before you does not mean to say that you won't get there. And that is kind of something I think is important to think about, that we're all on different time zones, we're all on different paths, everyone is different. Someone over there might be really speedy, but they're going off on a different direction, and you'll be like, whoa. And someone behind you might be really slow, but they might be okay with being slow. Everything is like relative, I guess. Like everyone is going at their own pace, but that also means you can't compare yourself to the next person, because you don't know where they've got to, how they've got there, what they've done to get there. You don't know if they've stayed up all night to get that one piece of work done, and they do that every night. Everyone works differently, everyone does life differently, and I just feel like that's something that you can't compare against, because everyone is different and you aren't the same as the next person. And I actually saw this quote on Pinterest, which I actually shared on my Instagram story because I loved it so much. I just thought, oh, so cute. And it was a picture of two flowers, like in a pots, like two flower pots. And one of the flowers says, I love your petals. And then the other flower says, thanks, I'm not blooming as quickly as you though. And then the first flower says, we're different flowers, silly. And I thought, oh, that's so cute. First of all, so cute. Second of all, like, doesn't that just put things into perspective? Like, because I think sometimes you can't visually see a huge difference. Like, oh, I'm blonde, she's blonde, we look the same, blah, 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 for instance. Doesn't mean to say that, like, you're the same and that you're blooming the same, because you're not. I think everyone's life experience is different, and the way you bloom and the way you grow and whatnot is different, and we have to remember that. If you put yourself next to someone and you thought about what flower they would be, what flower would they be and what flower would you be? Would you be the same flower? Probably not. So that's something to think about as well. But one thing I thought was quite interesting when I was looking into comparison, and I was having a little research online because I wanted to make sure that what I was talking about really like made sense and not just like regurgitating information that I've just got in my head. Do you know what I mean? But one thing that really came to me and I thought, wow, is this idea that comparison is almost robbing you of your happiness. And when I thought about it, I was like, yes, that's so true. Because when you think about it, you're sat there. Let's use social media as an example, because I feel like that is probably something that we often all do, whether we're comparing against influencers, people that you know, whatever. Because if you're someone who's not an influencer and you're comparing your life against an influencer, it kind of makes sense. Do you know what I mean? But if you're sat there on your phone, scrolling, comparing, like, oh, she's doing so well, like, oh, she's got the dream life, she's got the dream flat, she's got this, she's got that, like, she's got so many followers, like, she looks like cool, she's got the boyfriend, blah blah blah. You're constantly just thinking about them. Your brain is spiraling into what they're doing and not actually being present with what you're doing. And I think it can really, like I said, you spiral your brain. The minute you start getting into this hole, it's taking away anything around you that might be giving you happiness, because your focus is going in on this one thing. And it really does happen. Like, I'm sure some of you can relate. When you get into it, you just feel like your brain just can't think about anything else. And you're just like, oh, I feel so shit. Like, why isn't my life like that? Why am I not living the best life? And actually, like, you're probably living a pretty good life. But because you feel like what you've seen and what you see this person that you're comparing to yourself to is like good, that makes you feel like your life isn't good, which actually isn't the case. And I think that when you compare yourself, you're just giving all your time to this idea of worrying why you're not like them, when actually you could give yourself the time and start thinking about, okay, what can I do to better myself? What can I do to get to where that person is? If that person is someone that you want to be, if that person is living the life you want to live, how can you better yourself to get to that point, rather than sitting and being like, oh my god, I just want that? Because you do start to dip in this low negative headspace, which is not what we want. We do not want to be dipping into a negative headspace with these kind of things. It's just not worth it, because like I said, Everyone is different. Everyone's living a different life. And it's just not worth losing your happiness for the sake of comparing your life against someone else's. One thing I do think is so interesting, actually, is the idea that perfection is an illusion, and that what we see as perfection is different. Every single person's version of perfection is different. What I would see as a perfect life to someone who has that life might not be the perfect life. And to someone next to me might think what I think is the perfect life really isn't the perfect life. Everything we see and everything we believe to be perfect is like relative to yourself and what you believe, right? So I could sit here and be like, I absolutely love Matilda Djerf. I think her style is cool. Like, I love her, right? The next person might be like, oh, I absolutely love Kylie Jenner. She's like perfection. But I wouldn't say Kylie Jenner was perfection in my eyes, right? For example, I mean, Kylie Jenner's beautiful, but she's not like, I'm not like aspiring to live her life. I'm perfectly okay with my life. But you can see how everyone's version of perfection is different. Same with like the types of guys you're into, the type of job you want. For instance, I'm someone who would want to live a job want to live a job? That makes no sense. I want to be someone who does, I've always wanted to be someone who does a job that I love versus earning loads of money. Whereas I know there's people out there who only really care about the money and don't really care about the job, which is fine. Like, if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But it's just not something I want to do. I'm definitely one of those people who wants to live like a happy life and a quality life and enjoy every part of it rather than like stressing myself out every single day but having loads of money. But obviously, some people see that as perfection. Getting loads of money is perfection to some people, and other people, it's really not. It's just about living a good quality life. So your version of perfection is going to be different. So if you see someone and you're comparing yourself against someone and you think, oh God, they're living such a good life. Oh, I just want to be that person. 9 times out of 10, it's just your version of perfection that is making you think like that. And what you're comparing your life to, someone probably does think your life is perfection. Everyone is going to have someone who would always want to be in your shoes. It's just like natural, right? But remember that just because someone has got all of these things doesn't make them perfect. No one is perfect. It's just what we feel is perfect and what we believe to be perfect. No one is perfect. So when it comes to perfection, it's almost like we're making it up in our heads that, oh yeah, that is what I would call perfection. But actually, no one is perfect. No one has everything. It's just not how life is. So why are we sitting here thinking that that person is perfect when the most likely chance is that they're not? No one is perfect. They're just perfect to you, which is then, something that's only to do with you rather than everyone. So then it's like looking at the bigger picture and it's thinking, okay, well, if I see that person as perfection, yet no one is perfect, what is it in that person that what is it about my life and about me that I'm comparing to that person? And why do I feel like I am not as good as that person? Do you know what I mean? Because everyone is different in their own way. And everyone has their own little things that make them different. But what is it about that that's making you feel like that person is giving perfection? Why are you not saying, do you know what, my life is great? I don't need perfection. Because some people do want that. They strive for that perfection. And some people are just like, I don't need to be perfect. Like, people out there are going to think there's certain people out there who will think you're amazing and think you're great and think you are perfect, but also at the same time, like, no one is. And also, something that I think is very interesting that I thought was really very much looking at the bigger picture of this whole thing about the whole idea of comparison is that life isn't fair. We could sit here and say, oh, like, it is fair. Like, we all get to do the things we want to do, blah, 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 for example. But actually, life isn't fair. Some people are born into really rich families and some people are born into really poor families. Some people are given opportunities very easily and some people aren't. Some people are, born into a family that gives them the right boost to get to where they want to be. Some people are born into families that literally have no money whatsoever and they have to work from the ground up. Every single person has a different life and has come from a different background. Someone who's got loads of money and comes from a rich background is going to get somewhere faster than someone who hasn't got that. This is where you kind of have to really think about the bigger picture, right? You were born into the life that you're born into. You can't change that, unfortunately. We were born into the life we're born into. Actually, I think if we were all born into rich families, do you know how boring life would be? Do you know how, like, it wouldn't be fun? But we're born into this life, however we're born into it, right? And you might be coming from a poorer family, you might be coming from a rich family, you might be coming from a middle class family, you might be adopted. There's so many different versions of people out there. Do you know what I mean? You have the life that you've got. You can't then compare yourself, essentially, to someone who has lived a completely different life to you. Everyone's life is different. And the way you've been brought up, the way you have dealt with school, the things you've struggled with in life are all personal and, that's personal to you in your life. You can't then go and compare your life to someone else who maybe loved school or had no struggles or has just been handed everything on a plate. You can't compare your life to that. If I sit here, for example, and say, I'm someone who I really struggled in school. I had really bad social anxiety and it made school I just hated it. I have no friends from school at all. To me, that's fine. I'm totally okay with that. I think I've grown into a person that I love now, and that, the people that I knew from school I just don't feel like we gel at all because I'm a changed person from when I was at school. I can't sit here, right, and compare to the next person who had the best time at school and had a great time and had great friends and has friends for like 20 years because they've been friends with them since school. I can't compare my life to them. We've had a different life. So, and it's the same if you're someone who's super rich and you're trying to compare yourself to someone who is like, I don't know, they've worked their way up to get there. Just because you're rich and you've got loads of money doesn't mean to say that you are worthy of something when someone else has worked hard for it. Do you know what I mean? Everyone is different. I keep saying that, but I think we need to reiterate it. Like, someone could have worked from the ground up. They've established an amazing business and they've done something so good for themselves and like they're just thriving, right? And then you've got the next person who's maybe got loads of money and they've like got to the same position, but that person's doing way better. Why is that person doing way better? Because they've just worked for where they've got. Just because you're at the same position doesn't mean to say you can compare, because they've worked super hard to get there. You might have worked hard to get there. You might also have loads of money. This other person might have loads of money. But you have to do your life how you do your life and how life comes to you, right? One person is working hard. They've worked so hard and they've had to really, really like do a lot of work to get to where they're at. The other person might have loads of money and actually has worked hard to get there, but has a lot of money, so that's helped. And you've got two people, right? This person now does have lots of money. Both people have lots of money, for example, because they've worked hard. But that person with the poorer background who's worked from the ground has had a completely different life to the other person. You can't then sit there and compare your lives, because the rich person has almost like, got it easy in a way, and the other person has worked hard. If that person who's worked hard, they've got the same amount of money now, they're doing the same job. If you're sat there comparing, it's like, but actually your whole journey to get to this point has been completely different. So you can't really compare. You can't sit there and compare yourself to that person, because where you've got to is where you have like, you were always supposed to end up. And I think something we do have to remember is that we have to just accept that it's hard. We have to accept that life is hard and accept that, not everyone's life is the same and not everyone comes from the same background, and we have to accept that life isn't fair. And it isn't fair. It really isn't fair, because the people that, we lose in our lives and the people that are no longer with us, those people are usually some of the best people. And the people that maybe you always thought were your friends, and then they end up not being your friends. that's a shit situation to go through. There's a lot of things in life that are shit to go through. Anxiety, depression, any mental health, anything really. There's so many things out there, whether you have a big operation or a terrible accident. All of these things are things that shape you as a person, but also make life not fair. But you have to work with the amazing life that you have and enjoy life how you have your life, because comparing it to the next person isn't really going to help you. If anything, you're just making life worse for yourself, because you're overthinking something that actually you don't need to overthink, because your life is great. Everyone's life is different, and everyone's doing their own thing and living the life that they've got given, because unfortunately we can't change how we were brought into this world, because we're just brought into this world how we're brought into this world. Don't you think it's weird that like you can't remember what it's like to be in like your mum's tummy? Imagine if we could remember what it's like to be inside a tummy. Sorry, that's such a random thought. This is how my brain works. Another thing that I think comparison can do is killing your dreams. If you see someone who's doing so well, they've got that dream job, and you think, I'm never going to get there. And you can compare yourself to them all the time. I'm never going to get there. I'm never going to get that job. It's going to kill your dream, because eventually you're going to believe that you can't get there, and you're going to sit there and think, well, I'm just going to change what I'm doing. I'm going to try something new because I'm never going to get there. But actually, if you just stop comparing yourself to that person and like look at where you're at and take a step back, you might actually realize, you know what, I can get there. And maybe it will change your perception, but you can't sit and see what someone else is doing and just think, oh, I'm never going to get there, and then believe it, because your dreams will be gone, smushed, disappeared, and you'll be like, oh, and there's nothing worse, right, than later in life thinking, I wish I hadn't done that, I wish I'd just kept at it. So always keep at the things you're doing, because even if they feel like they're not getting very far quickly, you're on a path and you're getting there, and you're getting to where you need to be. For instance, this podcast, right? I started doing this because I just love having a conversation. I like having a chat. I feel like I'm quite good at advice, if I do say so myself, and I enjoy it, right? I don't earn any money from this right now. I have thought many a time maybe I should have stopped, but I haven't, because I really do feel like this idea that when you want to do something, when you have the feeling to do something, it was planted in you for a reason. There was a reason why I felt like I should do this and why I'm still doing it. So I have to trust that in the universe, and trust that everything is going how it's supposed to, and this is the plan. And maybe it's going to take me a really long time before this gets, pops off. But then when I think about it, the amount of people that listen to this already is mad. And I'm so grateful for all of you for listening, because like when I get a message saying, oh, I love your podcast, I'm like, whoa, this is so mad to me, because I'm just a girl sat on the floor in her living room chatting into a mic. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, stick at your dreams. Don't let the comparison hole get you into a headspace that stops you from wanting to do your dreams. Wanting to do your dreams? Live your dreams. Because, it's important to do. It's important to have dreams and strive for them. Also, if you're someone who does dip into comparison quite a lot, and maybe you're trying to get yourself out of it, I'm going to give you some tips in a minute. But something that I really thought was quite interesting as well is that if you continually dip into comparison, you're continually doing it, maybe around your friends, your family, everyone, it can actually, the more you do it, become quite a toxic, negative habit. When you look at it from a bigger picture, if you are constantly comparing yourself to people and talking about it and having those, like if you're doing it all the time, it can get to a point where people are like, please stop. You don't want your friends, your family to be like, can you just, like, please, you keep going on about this, it's getting boring now. Like when you really think about it, it can affect other people as well. If you're going to get really, really deep into the comparison hole to the point where you're constantly complaining. And when you're constantly complaining, you're then bringing in that negative energy. And when you're bringing in that negative energy, it's then just going to reflect on the person you are. And you don't want to be a negative person. You don't want to think negatively. I think negativity is very easy to dip into when you're thinking about comparison, because you're comparing yourself, then you're thinking you're not good enough, then you're dipping into the negative, which is not what we want. And if you're continually doing it, and if you're doing it when you're around other friends and people and whatnot, they're going to be like, they might get pissed off. They might then be like, oh, she just completely just always complains. She's always complaining. She's always comparing. Then people might, drift away from you because they might see it as a negative, toxic habit that they then don't like in you. And that's the last thing you want. It's actually quite a horrible thing to think about when you think about it. But maybe just remind yourself of those moments when you're comparing yourself and be like, no, because this is not a healthy thing. It's not healthy to constantly compare yourself, especially when you're maybe talking to your friends about it all the time as well, because as much as your friends can lift you up, it gets to a point where they can only say so much before they're going to have enough of like trying to make you feel better. So something to think about for sure. But a few things you can do to maybe get yourself out of this comparison hole and make yourself feel a little bit better if you're, in this like feeling at the moment or at any point, The first one is practicing gratitude. Practicing gratitude is great to do regardless, but it's also good to stop yourself from dipping into the negative about your life. You can just, be grateful for everything you have in your life. When you really think about it, you have so many good things going on, and practicing gratitude is a really nice way of remembering all the things you've got going on. Your family, being grateful for your friends, the home you live in, the job you have, the people you've met, the amazing memories you have, all of these things, the clear, clean water that you get to drink, the food you get to go and eat out. Do you know what I mean? Like, all of these things are things to be grateful for, and it does open you up to realizing just how great your life actually is. Another one is focus on self-improvement and not rivalry. Think about, if you're sat there comparing against someone, what can you do to improve yourself? What can you take from that situation? Okay, so you're comparing yourself to someone and their job. What can you then do? Okay, you might have a similar job and you're not getting there. What can you do yourself to get yourself there? Self-improvement is a really good way. It's a good way of like twisting it on its head. If you see something that you're comparing yourself against and you're like, oh, I don't have that, I want that. Well, what can you do in your own life, in your own self, human being, that can get you to that point? What can you do? There's always something you can do. Maybe it's starting a new hobby that will get you there. Maybe it's actually, okay, well, I actually need to go out and do X, Y, Z. Maybe, okay, she's got the dream body, but do you not think you have the dream body? Why do you think she has the dream body? What can you do to make yourself feel like you have the dream body? There are so many things you can do to improve yourself, and work on yourself always. It's always important. But I think if you're ever feeling like someone has a better life than you, or they look better than you, but what is it that you like about them? And switch it and think, okay, well, I really like the way she does that, I'm going to give it a go. Or maybe it's like, okay, well, she has long hair, I don't have long hair, I can't get long hair, but actually I love my short hair. Do you know what I mean? Something like that. One thing that is very important to do, and something I actually struggle to do because it's my life, and that is take a break from social media. Social media is probably the killjoy of all things sometimes, especially if you're in a low headspace. But taking a break from social media can really, really help to just reset your brain, reset how you're thinking about things. Remember that Instagram is a highlight reel. It's literally a highlight reel. And I even think to myself, like, I only really share the highlights. And that's only because as I've been doing social media for so long, I don't like to show every single thing going on in my life. I like a bit of privacy. And I think that's just something I've felt like as I've got a bit older, I just feel like I want to share less, but share as much as I can also. So yeah, you do only see the highlight reels from a lot of people, but also remember that people that do look like they're living this like lavish life of always hanging out with their friends constantly, friends, oh my god, my life, I'm drinking, blah, blah, blah. Most of the time they've got things going on, and everyone's got something going on. I do like to share when I'm feeling low on my social media. I think that's also very important. And every time I have done it, people are really grateful that I do. So that's something I also do share. But I'm obviously not going to sit there and share like me crying on my Instagram stories, because I just don't see the point. I also don't want to show me crying. I want to keep that personal. There's so many things people keep personal, and only share the good things on social media, which is kind of almost like what it's been like for a very long time. But I think we forget that what people are sharing on their sharing on their social media about their lives is just a little snippet. It's like what, an eighth of someone's life. You don't even see the rest of it. So that's something to remember. But if you're really struggling with it, maybe social media is taking its toll, take a break, take a step back, and then come back to it when you're feeling a bit more positive, because I promise you it will help. And if you're someone who doesn't work in social media, it will be 10 times easier to do so. I sometimes just have to, put my phone away and just not look and not scroll on social media, and sometimes just do something away from social media. Maybe go see my friends, not be on my phone, go home to see my family. I don't go on my phone that much when I'm with my family. So that's a good way of like me stopping myself from constantly scrolling. Oh my God, did you hear that? That was my stomach. I'm so hungry. And the last one is surround yourself with authentic people. People around you, the people that you have around you are so important. And when you have people around you that are authentic, that just living their true lives, that are living the best lives that they can live at that moment in time, and they lift you up, they make you feel positive, they are just giving you what you need and not making you feel negative or low. You don't want toxic people in your life, because that will make it 10 times worse. You just want people to be like, oh, stop it, you have a great life, when you start comparing yourself, or being like, oh, do you know what, stop it, you've got such an amazing life, and making you realize how great your life is. Those people are the people that you need, and the people that will stick with you no matter what. Obviously, we all go into comparison. It's so normal to compare yourself to other people. Don't ever think that you shouldn't be, because it's so normal to. But if you're dipping too far into the negative of it, that's when you need to be a little bit more cautious of where you're going with those thoughts and why you're thinking like that. Sometimes you just need to take a step back and think, okay, why am I thinking like this? What is it that's going on? Because sometimes it can be something else that's going on in your life that drifts you into that comparison, and then you start, spiraling into other things. But just remember that you're always on the right path, and where you're going is where you're supposed to be. Everyone's on their own track and their own train, and every train is different, and every train track is different, and every speed of your train is different. So remember, you still have time to, realize just how great your life is, and you've still got time to figure it out, and you've still got time to understand that comparison is a thief of joy, and that you can switch it around. And remember, your life is amazing. Everyone is living a great life. You're on this planet, you're healthy, and if you're happy, then you're living a good life. So yeah, I hope this helped. I don't know if I rambled quite a lot. I probably did. I always do that. But I'm going to love you and leave you. But I will see you all in next week's episode. Bye!